Okay, so I think my last list might have ruffled some feathers, so let's talk about something that's 100% sure not to upset anybody. Motorcycles are fun. Oh wow, thanks for that hot take there, Spite. Next you're gonna let me know that the sky is blue and the Hayabusa is the best beginner bike of all time, or some equally well-known fact. Okay, yeah, maybe that simple declarative statement wasn't exactly the most groundbreaking, but it's the reason why we all wanted to get into motorcycling, right? I can honestly say I don't think I've had a bad time on two wheels. Have there been times when I've been ready for a day to be done so I could get off the bike? Sure, but I still enjoyed the ride. And in that way, bikes are basically all like dogs. They're all happy little creatures that just want to have a good time. But over the last 10 months that I've been a part of the Yammie Noob team, I've gotten to ride so many different kinds of motorcycles, and I can say inherently that some are more fun than others. It doesn't mean they're bad. Of course it doesn't. Remember, bikes are all like dogs, and all dogs are good dogs. So by the transitive property, all bikes are good. Just some are like golden retrievers and always want to go and do something, and others are like pugs who would prefer to lounge around the house all day long. So in that spirit, let's take a few minutes and rank all the different kinds of motorcycles from F to A tier on street fun factor alone. And just to drive the point home here, less fun does not equal bad. You know what does equal bad though? Your stupid old canvas trifold wallet. That thing's a worn out relic of a bygone era like flossing or whatever the kids were doing yesterday. I mean, you might as well just stuff your money and cards in your pocket in some sort of disorganized wad. That, or you could be like a real human and get a Ridge wallet. The Ridge makes the best currency containing system on the market. No more will you have a 4-inch thick chunk of leather sitting in your back pocket. With the Ridge, all your cards and cash are cradled gently betwixt a pair of RFID blocking color-matched plates with your choice of materials. It really is the best choice, but what do I know? It's not like I've been carrying a Ridge wallet around for more than a year or anything. Also, in case you were wondering, these things are super durable. I ran mine over with my street rod a little while back, and it's none the worse for wear. Do yourself a favor and click the link down below where you can get yourself a Ridge wallet for 10% off when you use the code YammieNoob. And oh yeah, shipping's free. In all seriousness, the Ridge has been a long-time partner, and I really do love my Ridge wallet, so go show them some love. Now, like any good tier list, we need to start off with the F tier. A bike finds itself in the F tier because the best thing that you can say about it is that it has two wheels and an engine. These are the kind of bikes that should you find yourself the owner of, you might say, oh yeah, I ride a motorcycle, but you might neglect to mention what kind of motorcycle you ride. And the first on our entry in the F tier are project motorcycles. These are your Craigslist specials, your parts bin crap bikes, the sort of motorcycle where the side cover says Yamaha and the frame says Suzuki. Does it have a title? Probably not. Does it run? Sometimes. Will it wheelie? Hold my beer. Project motorcycles are great when they work because there's a hand-built quality to it and a sense of pride and accomplishment you get when you can say that you restored some old beater into a working motorcycle. But when they're not running, they're worse than wading knee-deep through a pool of Legos barefoot. Ask me how I know. Joining the project bikes in the F tier are the 125cc motorcycles, and for my European brethren, I am so sorry I have to do this to you, but as an American street rider, a 125cc motorcycle just doesn't cut the mustard. Can they be fun in a parking lot? Yes. Can you run around town just fine? Yes. Would you like to spend all day on one? Oh, sweet Jesus, no. These include bikes like the dirt cheap Amazon Chinese bikes, but not the Grom, and we'll come back to that one later. Moving on up, we've got the E tier. E tier is wholly occupied by one motorcycle and one motorcycle alone, the Versys 650. Now this one might make Ari Henning sad, but I'm sorry to say the Versys 650 is one of the most white bread motorcycles out there. It's not in the F tier because it's fast enough to get you anywhere you want to go, but it's not exactly going to get your heart racing. To bogart one of Yammie's favorite economics terms, the Versys 650 is the bike you get when you're a rational actor, or someone who wants to make the optimal choice based on calculated benefits. And I'm already losing the plot. That's basically the Versys 650 in a nutshell though, the perfect motorcycle for people who need their motorcycle to be a Honda Civic. Now we get to the D tier. These bikes are a whole lot less plain than the Versys 650, and they're also starting to get a little bit more fun. And to start us off, we have touring motorcycles. This includes bikes like the Honda Goldwing, the Harley-Davidson CVOs, and other bikes that are designed to just chew up highway miles. The best part of these bikes is that you can wake up in the morning and ride to the Grand Canyon and feel completely fresh when you get there. They're so comfy that the miles just melt away, but going straight at 70 miles an hour for 8 hours isn't exactly my idea of a good time. time. They're also crazy expensive, so for the price of 2 R1s, you can get a bike that has less power, can basically ride itself, and sounds like a minivan. Yeah, that might appeal to a certain group of riders who really want to see the world on 2 wheels, but there's better choices. Another group of motorcycles that find itself in the fun factor D tier are the pre-2019 beginner bikes. And I say pre-2019 because that's the year that Yamaha updated their R3 to look like the R6 and R1. These bikes are great to learn on, but after a while you're just gonna outgrow them. They lack any kind of wow factor that the Ninja 400, Duke 390, and MT-03 have. And speaking of which, we've got an MT-03 in the shop right now that we're giving away to some lucky duckling over on YammieNoob.co. Click that link down below to get entered for free, or sign up to get access to our Discord server, which is definitely S tier for fun factor. But anyway, these older beginner bikes are the type of bike that you might look back on fondly when you reminisce about your very first time riding. You might be on a big bad leader bike by now, but at one point you were a tender young squid taking your very first steps. Just remember why you outgrew that bike though. Now, C-tier motorcycles are where we really start getting into the ones that make you smile when you crack the throttle open. And the first group of bikes I'm putting in here are adventure bikes. Think stuff like the KTM 1290 Adventure, the R1250 GS, and smaller ADVs like the Tenere 700. These bikes combine a lot of things that people love about motorcycling. Power, technology, and a go-anywhere, do-anything spirit that's very attractive. I mean, hell, when I stand here saying this, I just want to go out and ride in the middle of nowhere just to say that I can. But the fly in the ointment here is a combination of price, weight, and complexity. In theory, you can take an R1250 GS down a single track, but in practice, it's a little more complicated. I mean, I had enough trouble wrangling my 324-pound DRZ 400 through the mud, and I can't imagine what it would be like to tackle a mud bog on something that weighs upward of 550 pounds. It's like hammering in a nail with a screwdriver. You can do it, sure, but there's better tools for the job, and it won't cost you $20,000 with electric solenoids in the engine. But hey, there is some fun to be had in saying that you chucked your big adventure bike down the trail and actually have the patina to prove it. Another C-tier group of bikes are the sport touring motorcycles, stuff like the VFR 800, which I no longer own, or the S1000 XR, or even maybe some of the bigger bikes like the FJR 1300 and its ilk. Sport tourers take the fun of a sport bike and dial it back by about 50% in the name of rider comfort. These are bikes that typically all weigh about 100 pounds more than they need to, cost about $3,000 too much, but when you get down to it, you can still chuck them into a corner and have a pretty darn good time. Plus, with the ability to carry luggage and do big miles on the highway, you can take them for a road trip and carve up twisties the next state over, which automatically makes them better than the baggers and touring bikes in the D tier. But they're also not as playful as something like a naked bike, instead favoring a little bit more of a pulled together and serious riding experience. Our last C-tier motorcycle is the Honda Grom and Monkey or other 125cc mini bikes like the Z125. I told you I'd get back to them, didn't I? If you're wondering what makes these bikes different from other 125s, it's their low-stakes nature. If you haven't actually sat on a Grom before, you really should. It's kind of surprising how you almost instantly think, yeah, I could have a lot of fun with one of these. And you absolutely can. You can beat the thing to death, ring it all the way to redline, drop it down a mountain, and it'll still start right up at the bottom. The thing that keeps it from being any higher up on today's list is that it's just too slow to hang with real motorcycles. But hey, that's what Grom squads are for. Now, B-tier bikes are the ones that really know how to get the juices flowing, but they tend to only serve one purpose, or to put it another way, they're best enjoyed in one very specific setting. And our first B-tier motorcycles are super sports. What? How dare you say something like the RSV4 or the Ducati V4r aren't the pinnacle of fun? While I admit that a top-spec leader bike is one of the most exhilarating experiences for me, it has been just a little disappointing. You see, you have this incredible engine, the chassis designed by angels, and a riding experience that's second to none, but you can never touch what these bikes have to offer. Not on the street, anyway. Sure, when you take your race-prepped 600 to the track, you can probably push it to its very edge of performance, which according to Yammie is almost a zen art. But as a street rider, I can appreciate the power these bikes have, but I can't use it anywhere. I mean, if you wanted to, you could ride the R1 and never shift out of first gear, like a scooter. I'm just gonna leave that one right there. In the same vein, I'm going to include the current crop of hyper-naked motorcycles here, because yes, the Super Duke's 103 foot-pounds of torque is amazing. It's one of the best motorcycles I've ever ridden, but again, you're not going to be able to extract its full potential on the street. Another B-tier class of motorcycles are off-road only dirt bikes. bikes. They're light, they're fast, and they're flattering for off-road novices, but they're only good for and legal for off-roading. Having only recently been introduced to the joys of sliding around on trails with a poor approximation of a dirt bike, I can only imagine what something that weighs as much as a Grom but puts down almost 50 horsepower can be like. I mean, you probably never need to replace that front tire since it's never going to touch the ground. But the fact remains that you can't enjoy these bikes every day unless you live on a farm. Finally, I wanted to add cruisers to the B tier because they're really fun to crack the throttle open and just let a bunch of torque rip you off the line, but they're best experienced while just going in a straight line. They're great commuters and have a lot of character, unless you own a Vulcan S, but when you judge them by any other metric, they just start to fall apart. And now we're moving on up to the A tier, which are bikes that no matter what you're doing, you can have fun with. And we're going to start off with dual sports. Yep, you might think they're ugly, but when you go from hitting a twisty road to tearing up a berm on a dirt trail, all while loaded down for an adventure, you can stop caring about the looks because you're just having too much fun. If you want to legitimately do anything, go anywhere kind of motorcycle, you absolutely need a dual sport. Another A tier motorcycle goes to the entire 650 class of motorcycles, obviously excluding the Versa 650. This entire class of motorcycles has so many different experiences to choose from, all with really good prices. Bonus points if they have a V-twin, because V-twins are the best. Do you want to wind out your bike and listen to an inline 4 scream? Well, you got the CB 650R or CBR 650R. How about pop wheelies and do hood rat stuff with your friends? MT-07. Maybe you want a little bit more technology in your ride. Kawasaki Ninja 650. All of these bikes have enough power to really have fun with. They're light and they're nimble and they're pretty much bulletproof. The best part about this is that for a slightly more reasonable or maybe just an older beginner, they're a great first choice. Sure, they're not going to have the biblical top end of an R1, but you can track these bikes all day long and the comfy seating position won't have your spine knotted up after 5 laps. Of all the bikes that I've ridden over the past year, the 650s have been the ones that I keep coming back to put a smile on my face. Now finally, the S tier. These are the bikes that provide more smiles per gallon than any other motorcycle out there. They stand apart as the most goofy and playful bikes you can ride. They're the epitome of a street bike, and some of you have probably already guessed it, but my pick for the S tier, the most fun motorcycles ever, goes to the Supermotos. The most carefree, effervescent motorcycles you can exchange human currency for. They're stupid motorcycles. They're horrible at high speeds. They sound the same, and they're all fat dirt bikes, but ha, thumpy boy go brap. Believe me when I say that I thought Supermotos were just the dominion of r/Calamari race team, but damn if I don't have fun every single time I ride one. You can get them in a bunch of different flavors, from the simple DRZ 400 SM to the absolutely bonkers Husqvarna 701 and KTM SMCR, which I just bought, so maybe I'm a little biased. Hell, you could even convert a dirt bike if you have the time and skills. For an everyday ride, I cannot think of a more fun bike to own than a Supermoto because they're lightweight, make a perfect amount of power, and if you bin it, who cares? Because it's a Sumo. They all look beat up. If you've never ridden one before, you definitely need to give it a try. And you might be like me where it takes some time to get used to, but stick with it, my dude, and you too will see the light. Sumo is life. Sumo is the way.
So real bummer, this video is actually over, but you're in luck. There are hundreds of other Yammie Noob videos you can go and check out. Hit this one right over here. Watch it. Do it for Yammie-chan.